Thank you very much for inviting me to this very distinguished group to talk about the issues of religious freedom, of Islamophobia, and the challenges facing Muslims. And again, as was stated, I'm giving you a perspective, an Islamic perspective, from a Muslim living in America. And one of the greatest contributions I think that America has to offer the world is the ability of grassroots representatives to go and speak to governments and speak as members of civil society in helping to shape the policies that affect people. Because ultimately that's what we're all trying to do is develop policies that are in the best interest of our countries and of our peoples. Let me just make a few points on the topics and then be happy to go into the discussion format. I think we need to deal with certain myths and misconceptions about religious freedom. Number one, religious rights are actually a subset of human rights. We cannot look for religious rights and then ignore human rights. And I think we Muslims have a major challenge before us in dealing with that issue, because the way we present ourselves as communities and globally is that we demand our religious rights more importantly than anything else. We want our halal food, we want our hijab, we want our beards, we want our minarets, we want all these things, but then when it comes to civic responsibility and human rights for all people, we are silent or we're very low-keyed on those issues. And therefore, the way people perceive us, either you give them the religious rights and then you ignore their human rights, and that will acquiesce them, or they are an obstacle to human rights in general. But from our perspective, we believe that religious rights are important, but they're not everything that is important to us. In fact, I can have my religious rights privately, but publicly, what is more important is the rights of the people. I can pray on my own. I can fast. I can do so many things. Islam even says if you are under threat of your own life, then don't worry about declaring your faith about God. So we have the important distinctions, but also to understand that in achieving religious rights, it is an approach or part of what is important in terms of human rights. Number two, the purpose of religion, especially in terms of the monotheistic faiths, is to establish justice as vicegerents of God on this earth. Without justice, religion simply becomes a means of exploiting people by whoever is leading that religious group. But when we look to the monotheistic faiths, whether it is Moses liberating his people from the oppression of Pharaoh, and the biblical prophets who reminded people of that covenant, culminating in the message of Jesus as the Word of God, and Muhammad not only culminating that message through the line of Ishmael, but manifesting these values in a state, it was all centered around the belief in one God, the belief in one family, and promoting the values of justice, mercy, and compassion. Therefore, from our standpoint as Muslims, to believe in Tawheed, or the oneness and unity of God, cannot be understood or acknowledged without the belief in human equality. And that is the contribution of religion, is to do away with which tribe or which ethnicity or which blood is more important than others from the standpoint of religion. And also that the will of God and the will of people are inseparable. Number three, the myth of secularism versus religion. To me, these are artificial barriers that separate the two, because secularism is not relevant to us unless there is a moral foundation to the secular approach in having governments that are working for the interests of people. And secularism is not against religion, it is actually neutral on religion. And so for the American model, and I can only speak about that today, it is the most religious society, but it is a secular government that is in place. Religion also, if it is meant to serve the interests of people, has secular approaches in terms of delivering those interests. When we talk about the goals of Sharia, for example, the goals of Islamic law, they are 5. Those 5 goals that are accepted by all the scholars of Islam, by all the jurists, all the schools of thought, are securing and developing the rights to life, mind, faith, property, and family. So this is similar in our society in America to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I see no incompatibility between secularism and religion if we define those terms in a way that is serving the interests of people and are based on moral foundations. Number 4, religion flourishes in a free society, whereas it becomes radicalized in an oppressive society. So part of the goal of religion is to support liberation movements, to support freedom of worship and freedom of expression, and definitely religious freedom was a major part of the founding of both America and the founding of the state that was led by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So religious freedom and a free society or religious freedom and free speech are actually opposite sides of the same coin of human rights. In the Quran, it also says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لكل جعلنا منكم شرعة ومنهاجا ولو شاء الله لجعلكم أمة واحدة ولكن ليبلوكم فيما آتاكم فاستبقوا الخيرات. To each of you, we have made a different law and a different way. And if it were God's will, He would have made you into one community, but He gives you different circumstances to test you with those differences. Therefore, go and compete and vie for what is good in this life. So the will of God is religious diversity and racial diversity and ethnic diversity. And acknowledging that diversity as a part of an Islamic obligation is important for the Muslim to be effective in terms of working for the rights and justice of all people and delivering on the mandate that is in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And the Quran also says, which is a verse that actually the President quoted in Cairo, that we have created you from a male and a female so that you are, and produced you into different nations and tribes so that you may come to know one another. And that knowing one another, لَتَعَارَفُوا, is the two groups not only understanding each other, but cooperating with each other and being compassionate towards each other. So this, to me, is part of that Islamic message of not only tolerance, but actually coexistence as the will of God in this time, especially in this time, in this global era.